Protector's Secret, Book 2 of the Guild of the Eternal Flame series, written by Talia Beckett, narrated by Brian Douglas. Chapter 1. The squelch of another dead rat made Saria wrinkle up her nose in disgust. This had been one of the more vile tasks they had been asked to deal with since deciding to create a guild. "Is that all of them?" Saria asked, grabbing another by the tail and chucking it into the sack Andorn held out and open. It squealed as she turned her back and Andorn dealt with it. She'd just not been able to bring herself to kill any of them. Ulfr, her wolf companion on the other hand, was over in one corner, munching down on something, its tail almost wagging back and forth in delight.
"I hope so,"
Yarlin replied, stomping over in his boots, his white trousers splattered with blood yet again. "I don't know why you wear that color," Mira said as she also came closer, the dragonborn sorceress exhaling fire onto the body of another rat until it was well and truly cooked. She then tossed it to Ulfr, who leapt to catch it between his powerful jaws. Once more, Saria wrinkled up her nose and frowned. The four adventurers went still, each of them listening. When Ulfr had stopped munching, the room was silent. But the wolf didn't stay still or quiet for long, sniffing at the air. Nose down low and moving towards the barrels in the middle of the cellar, Ulfr continued to sniff at something. As he got closer to one of the supporting pillars, he followed some kind of trail up until his nose bumped into the bottom of a bag hanging on a peg. The bag immediately started to wriggle and squeak.
"Not quite all of them,"
Yarlin said, before stabbing at the bag with his sword. It pierced not only the Hessian cloth, but the creature inside, the edges of the hole going red as he pulled the blade back out. "You've damaged the whole thing," Mira said. "We promised we'd try not to damage anything."
"It's an almost empty sack, and I'm sure it can be patched. And you can talk after you broke that barrel," he shot back. Saria sighed and looked to Andorn, who rolled his eyes, the pair of them having naturally slotted into the paternal roles within the group. "Looks like we're done," he said, nodding towards Ulfr, before Mira and Yarlin could argue about anything else. The large wolf was by the stairs, looking expectantly at them as it sat and panted. "Good enough for me," Mira replied, stomping over that way too. "Aye, let's get out of here. I want some pay. Been a while since I had a decent drink, and I've got a terrible thirst coming on for a good ale."
Yarlin grinned as he thought of the possibility. "You already know we need the money for the guild. We're meant to be building an actual proper building, remember?" Mira stuck out her tongue for a moment, the human gesture looking slightly strange on her dragon-like face.
"I don't see why we can't just expand the one there."
"Because you said it was all rotten and not built with good foundations. You said that the first nasty storm we had would finish it off." Yarlin frowned and opened his mouth as if he was going to argue, but he realized it was pointless to do so. He'd essentially be arguing with himself, and they all knew it. It made all four of them laugh. Given Saria had more than enough money left over from their first adventure together, she wasn't fussed if the guild took all of her pay for a while. But she lived far more simply than the others, and Yarlin always liked to spend his pay on drink and entertainment. It had shocked her, the first time, how readily he'd parted with his cash. It had been so bad that Andorn had confiscated the ex-sailor's coin purse and now handed money out to him at a set rate per day. At first Yarlin hadn't reacted too kindly to this, calling Andorn all sorts of names, but gradually he'd come around to the idea of being more controlled. The fighter led them from the cellar, his boots stomping up the wooden steps a fraction in front of Ulfr. Saria hung back a moment, surveying her companions. They'd met at the local inn, having been snowed into the town, the pass out of it buried in snow. With so many in the same situation, they had agreed to share rooms, and then the farmer had come in speaking of more than one problem. As she remembered how quickly Mira had volunteered them, she smiled. It had taken them on a wild ride, one Saria wouldn't have missed for anything. After you, Andorn said, breaking through Saria's thoughts and ushering her onwards. We should take one of these for Thorgrim, Mira suggested, noticing the sack Andorn still carried. It wriggled and jiggled.
I thought it was the apothecary who wanted them, not our cleric-turned-priest of the order,
Yarlin said. It is, but he keeps using his priest's duties as a way to get out of helping us with whatever tasks he deems are too simple, dull, or in this case, disgusting. The town needs a priest, Andorn replied, but as Saria looked at him, she could see he was holding the sack of rats out and clearly wished anyone but himself could take it. I just wish it needed a dragon-born sorceress, Mira said, puffing up her chest. Rogues aren't exactly in high demand either, he replied.
Feel free to do some of the stuff people think they can ask me,
Yarlin grumbled as he pushed the trapdoor above them back open. All four of them trooped out into the small kitchen of their employer for the afternoon.
Oh, thank you so much,
an elderly woman said.
I'd been losing so much food to the blighters, I can't thank you enough,
the old woman said.
It wasn't too difficult for us to solve,
Yarlin replied, suddenly all charms. We might have damaged one of your old cloth bags and a barrel, Mira said, as everyone around her tried to look as innocent as possible.
The barrel too?
The elderly woman looked towards her cellar.
I've learned a thing or two about carpentering with my time at sea. I'm pretty sure I can fix the barrel if you give me a couple of days,
Yarlin replied. Saria smiled to herself as Widow Venton gave him a grateful look and patted him on the shoulder.
You're a good lad. Now, let me get that little reward I spoke of.
Shuffling away, their employer of the hour went to a cupboard in her kitchen. After rummaging in the back for a while, she pulled out several old bottles covered in dust and cobwebs.
Those concoctions you asked for, and a few extra coin,
she said, handing the bottles and the coin to Andorn.
And I didn't mention it, but if you give me another few minutes, there's a good hunk of bread left and some stew over the fire. You're all welcome to a bite before you leave.
I've never been one to turn down unexpected hospitality,
Yarlin replied, beaming.
Well, it's the least I can do while you're all being so kind and helping out the town until our new priest arrives.
Within minutes, they were sitting around the old woman's table, eating as politely as possible, everyone minding their manners, and Yarlin barely saying a word in case he swore. Saria looked around at her companions more than once and felt a warmth inside. The few weeks they'd been working together, first to help the farmers and mayor of the town, and since to begin and fund a guild, she had finally begun to feel like she belonged somewhere again. They weren't a perfect set of folks, but they were clearly ready to settle somewhere after tough times on the roads themselves. She caught Andorn looking at her a short while later, and their eyes met, his lighting up. He was the most secretive of the bunch, but he had been leading them true so far. He appeared to have the most experience in both battle and in adventuring, but they had all mostly caught up. His dark brown hair was tied back in a ponytail at the moment, showing off the ears that betrayed his mix of elven and human heritage. Having lived in an elven area her whole childhood, Saria found even just his features interesting. She longed to ask him questions, but didn't dare. In truth, she found them all interesting, but none of them seemed to like talking of their past. They often told stories of adventures in moments of isolation, recounted to make the others laugh at some silly or difficult situation. And Saria didn't want to change that. She had things she didn't want to talk about herself. If she began to ask, they would expect some reciprocation, and she wasn't ready. Not even close. That was wonderful, Andorn said, the first to finish eating and put his spoon down.
Aye,
Yarlin replied as he too finished.
You must have kept your fella happy when you were still on this side of the grassy knoll,
The elderly woman sighed.
He did like my cooking.
We're sorry for your loss, Andorn added, and we've accepted your hospitality enough. You've already been far kinder and far more charitable than the likes of us need. We'll leave you in peace, but if you ever need our services again, don't hesitate to ask. As Andorn got up, Sarya took her last mouthful and followed suit.
You said you had a building in town?
Widow Vinton asked as she began collecting up the bowls.
Not quite in town, Mira replied. Up on the hill in the forest, there's a clearing.
The elderly woman looked confused for a moment. But we'll be in town often. You can ask for us at the inn or the temple, and we'll hear of your need, Andorn added, smiling as he gave a slight bow. Once they had all filed towards the door, Andorn followed them out. I'll meet you at the inn, Andorn replied, holding up the bottles that had been given as a reward to show he planned to take them straight to the temple.
Has Thorgrim explained why he needed those yet?
Yarlin asked. Mira shook her head.
I think it was a delicate matter,
Sarya attempted to explain.
Something that tends to bother females more than men.
Yarlin raised his eyebrows, looking as if he might speak and ask for more details, but then he shook his head.
Come on, Mira said. I promised you all a drink this time.
Aye, that you did, and I've got a mighty thirst, Yarlin grinned.
You always have a mighty thirst.
Mira grinned too, her scaly jaw looking almost fearsome.
So does the dwarf, he quipped back.
All of them chuckled, knowing Thorgrim wouldn't deny it either. Within another minute, they were in the inn, finding a large table off to one side. Mira came over with a full round as Thorgrim and Andorn appeared. Thorgrim put a little more money down on the table, and Andorn put it aside again, making Sarya wonder how much they'd truly earned and where it had gone. It didn't matter to her much, however. They had a roof over their heads, food and drink, and good company. Sarya had never put much value on anything else.
Well, this isn't a bad way to live,
Thorgrim said.
But I'd like something a little more interesting to do with my days than being the local priest and clearing basements of rats.
We've not been offered anything else, Sarya replied, but I too grow restless. We promised Bernard we'd find his sister.
Mira sat back as if this solved all their problems.
Aye, but we all know his sister is probably dead, right?
Someone like that probably got themselves silenced. And even if they ran, they wouldn't have survived long in a place like this, not without help. Yarlin shook his head, making it clear what he thought. Sarya tried to imagine what might have happened, following Yarlin's line of thought. It was definitely possible the woman wasn't alive anymore, but Sarya had survived so far, and there was a time when people probably wouldn't have thought her capable of it. Despite that, Sarya shivered. Yarlin's pessimistic viewpoint wasn't hard to imagine.
Well, I'm going to speak to Bernard again tomorrow. Ask him what he thinks happened. You'll come with me, won't you, Sarya?
Mira asked. On the spot, and not sure how to get out of it, Sarya nodded.
And I will undoubtedly have duties to attend as the town priest tomorrow,
Thorgrim replied.
And I hear Yarlin has a barrel to fix.
I guess that leaves me to see to the progress on the guild, Andorn replied. But for tonight, another round and a warm bed for once. We can worry about tomorrow's food on the morrow. Andorn smiled at them all before waving a silver coin in the air and asking for another round. 5 more mugs appeared in less than a minute, and Sarya joined the others in chatting and drinking. They talked of past adventures, as they often did, and what they wanted the guild to be like in the future, none of them mentioning the sentient creature that had tied them to the area in the first place. Beside the first section of the guild building, and buried under a trapdoor they had enchanted, was a discovery they had made just under a month before. A flame with apparent sentient thought. It had a personality and a desire to be with people, that kept them all guarding it and trying to learn from it. The former, to ensure it was safe, and it didn't burn down the forest it lived within, and the latter, to see if they could figure out why it had been put there in the first place. They planned to build a fireproof area above the trapdoor, and to increase the safe areas of the guild building so it could have some more freedom, but they were still debating how much free rein it should be given and who was going to be responsible for it. As the drink began to make Saria feel a little lightheaded, they called it a night, and or deciding for all of them when they'd spent enough money on drinks and should sleep it off. The slight buzzed feeling helped Saria feel less uncomfortable about sharing a room with Mira. Despite the two of them spending plenty of time together in the last month, they still had the odd, awkward moment, mostly because Mira liked to sleep as far away from everyone as possible, and Saria, being an elf, didn't sleep very much or very deeply when she did. With time, they were getting used to each other, but Saria knew it would take her many more months yet, and unless they found a source of income soon, they were unlikely to have many more months.